All right, so let's go ahead and get started with our first panel, scoring with skills, winning with character. So as I mentioned, this panel is going to, I would say, hopefully drive home the essential skills and character qualities that are necessary for breaking into the sports industry, but also maintaining success in the industry. All right, so I want to introduce our panel, and panelists, as I call your name, just let me know that you're here. So our first panelist is Brad Epstein, and Brad is the marketing strategy manager for ESPN Worldwide Sports for the Walt Disney Company. So Brad, are you? Yes, Brad, I see you right now. So Brad, good to see you again, and thanks for joining us.
No problem, Ron. Glad to be here.
Okay, terrific. And Gabe Haggard, who's Executive Director of Technical Operations and Media Systems for the Tennis Channel. Gabe, thanks again.
Absolutely.
Greg Morris, the Director of Programming and Acquisitions for ESPN. Greg, are you on by chance?
I am. Thank you.
Okay, perfect, Greg. Yeah, good to see you. Thank you. And then we have Jessica Leanne Brown, who's the Director of Editorial Content for NBA Digital. And actually, you know what? I realized that I have Jessica's title wrong. My apologies, Jessica. Jessica's actually the Executive Global Brand Partnerships, Executive for Global Brand Partnerships at CAA Sports. So my apologies. I'm so embarrassed by that mistake. So Jessica's with CAA Sports, not Turner Sports. And then we have Kate O'Malley Randall, who's the Vice President of Creative Strategy and Production Operations for the Players Tribune. And Kate, are you on?
Yep.
Okay, great. And Jessica, I missed you. Jessica, I'm assuming you're on. I think I saw you come on.
Yes, good morning.
Okay, good to see you, Jessica. My apologies for the mistake on your name. I usually do a bit better, so.
No worries.
And then Kevin Moss, who's the Director of Community Affairs for Major League Baseball. And Kevin, good to see you again, and thanks for joining.
Same here.
And then last but not least, we have Sean Merriman, who's the Senior Editor of College Football and Basketball for Fox Sports. And Sean, I'm assuming, I think I just saw you come on. Can you confirm?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks, Ron.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Certainly, Sean. Thank you again, panel, for joining us. And so I want to first just ask if you all could just briefly just share, maybe talk just briefly about your job role and key responsibilities. And Brad, let's go ahead and start with you.
Sure. I'll make it super quick because I don't want this to be about me. But yeah, Marketing Strategy Manager, ESPN Wide World of Sports, which is a sports complex on the Walt Disney World property in Orlando. And I am just responsible for attracting teams and different partners to the complex through marketing strategy as part of the marketing strategy organization for the Walt Disney Company.
Terrific. Thank you, Brad. And Gabe, how about you?
Yeah, at Tennis Channel, I oversee our technical operations department. That means our engineering staff, our media management staff, and our transmission and master control staff. So just oversee day-to-day operation, technical operations, primarily of our facility here in Santa Monica, to distribute all of our content to our linear channels and our OTT channels.
Terrific. Thank you, Gabe. And Greg.
Yes. Hey, everybody. So I work at ESPN overseeing the NFL programming and scheduling of all of our licensed content, which obviously extends to Monday Night Football, but across all of our studio shows, work closely with our digital and editorial team, all things NFL, and been in this position for about 15 years. I worked on a couple of different properties, but mostly NFL.
Terrific. Thank you, Greg. And Jessica, who once again is with CAA.
Yes, I have been.
Sports and not Turner Sports. Jessica, please go ahead.
Yes, so Jessica Brown here. I've been at CAA for about 4.5 years now. I work in our technically called Sports Property Sales Division. So I represent teams, leagues, and venues such as Formula One Racing, Red Bull Racing, Major League Baseball, hi Kevin, and Riot Games Esports, and a few others. And we go out and get their commercial marketing partnerships.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. And Kate, how about you?
Yeah, so I've been at Players Tribune for almost 7 years now. I oversee all of the branded content, so both the creative side, the production operations side. So kind of the people that come up with the ideas, oversee direct on site, interview talent, et cetera, as well as the production operations, who's the right hand to all of our creative staff, which do all the logistics, the planning, the booking, et cetera. So any commercial piece that you see either on Players Tribune or even on Linear that has our logo, we help a lot of our brand partners to create content from social all the way to Super Bowl Sunday. So really exciting and definitely been a fun journey so far.
Terrific. And Kevin, how about you?
Kevin Moss, Director of Community Affairs. I've been at MLB about the same time as Greg, about 15 years. Essentially, anything that you could say is related to social responsibility or corporate citizenship comes through our department, manage our partnerships.
Right. Thank you, Kevin. And Sean? Oh, Kevin, I'm sorry.
No, yeah. All right. Our
apologies.
partnerships with Jackie Robinson Foundation, Boys and Girls Clubs of America, Stand Up to Cancer, that all comes through us.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kevin. My apologies for interrupting you earlier. And Sean, how about you?
Yeah, I'm a senior editor on our editorial team. I oversee all the college football and basketball editorial content for foxsports.com and the Fox Sports app. So essentially managing a team of writers for both, coming up with written story concepts with all of them, and then oversee those from start to finish, build them on the website, and help with our desk as well, overseeing any type of breaking and trending news that come up on the college's side.
All right, terrific. Thank you, Sean. And so students, just to give you a heads up, I'm going to ask our panel 2 or 3 questions, and then I'm going to take a break and open the floor for you to ask questions. So just prepare, start thinking about questions that you may have for our panelists. They've given you a little bit better background. So, panel, you all have had your fair amount of experience in the sports industry, and you've had your share of success, and we've learned some things, quite a few things. And so I want to ask you, what skills and or character traits have benefited you the most in your sports career? And I'm going to give anyone an opportunity to start off asking that question. So what skills and or character traits have benefited you the most in your sports career journey?
I'll go. I think it's been the ability to understand a situation and to think things through with like a critical eye. And then I would say one of the most important character traits for me is to always strive for honesty and kindness. Actually, it's been really important throughout my career to always be honest with everyone that you're working with. Not least of which because it's actually a fairly small world in the world of sports media. You're always going to have to talk to this person again. You're always going to have to meet the same people over and over and over again. And so it's really important to not burn any bridges and to operate and communicate in a kind way.
Terrific. And I have to say, Gabe, it's refreshing to hear someone talk about kindness because we don't hear enough about that. So thank you for putting that in. All right. So who else?
Just to build on that too, Ron, and the kindness thing is, I actually have had a note about that later in a couple of the other questions. To his point, obviously you do run into a lot of the same people, but it can be really stressful, especially on the production side. If you're in a live event setting, there's a lot going on and it's very easy to lose your cool. Being kind when everybody else is under that same level of pressure, and to make sure that you're executing to the best of your ability, but also just understanding where other people are coming from is so important to succeed in this role. And I feel that the kindness, the communication that he mentioned is just so imperative, because if you don't enter a field with those things top of mind, it's very easy.
Yeah, I think we missed your last point. You went on mute. My apologies. I think we missed you.
No, it's okay. Just saying, I think it's easy to get caught up.
Yo
I
no
think there's a
entiendo el
lot of,
inglés, ¿qué pedo?
I think
No entiendo.
Paula, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway, just it's very important, I feel, because it can get very stressful and you have to work together. And to do that, you have to be aware of everybody around you, and definitely treat them with that respect and that kindness that was mentioned.
All right, terrific. Thank you, Kate. And just a quick reminder, I mentioned this a little earlier, so you may have missed this, but if you're not on the panel, if you could just put yourself on mute so we can block out background noises. Thank you. All right, so who else wants to chime in on that question?
I guess I could stay on that theme as well. I guess I would also put it in the direction of, you know, modesty goes a long way. It's similar to kindness, but modesty, I think, point well taken about sometimes the nature of our jobs can be a little stressful, but to the extent you can kind of stay even leveled, you know, reliability, modest, like all those traits will serve you well, because I think you can learn a lot about a person in those stressful times, and you can sort of make a differentiation for yourself if you are somebody that is relied upon, you know, when times get tough. So I think that happens a lot in the live sports business.
Terrific. Thank you, Greg.
Yeah, and I'll even
Okay.
just continue to build. I think there's a desire to have a desire to understand across, especially when you're dealing with sports, especially with dealing with events. You're dealing with a very high passion industry, which can lead to a lot of people having you know, that affect them in different ways. So just be very aware of that, but also be very have a desire to understand how everything works. So especially when you're dealing with sports, live events, being on site, have empathy for the people in operations, ticket sales, and you know, whether it's event night, not event night, people back of house, front of house. There's a lot of different roles that go into just the simple production of a game or a tennis event, because I used to be at the USTA and then I see Gabe here at Tennis Channel. There's a lot to understand, and the more that you are willing to understand how every piece fits, in order to make an experience for the guest or for the fan, will serve you well across the board. And having empathy for how those people are working and how these fans are coming in with such passion, the more that you understand how that passion then affects everybody else around you, will only serve you well.
And I'll chime in quickly here. I think to build upon that, you know, having the ability to read the room is very important. I can't tell you how many times I've gone into a room and people just lack the ability to read the room around them and understand the needs in that moment, and finding the right time to say things or make certain actions. And the second piece I'll say is authenticity is very important as well. Being true to yourself and who you are and what you're passionate about, not trying to mimic exactly what someone else is doing because you think that's the right way. I think that for us, you know, I was hired in my role on my team based on myself and my authenticity and who I am to me. And so whenever I get into this role, if I change, like that's going to be a shock to the team. So remaining authentic in your day-to-day life is very important.
Terrific. Thank you, Jessica. And authenticity piece. We're going to talk more about that. Maybe talk about networking later on too. But authenticity piece is so important. Thank you for that. So anybody else want to tackle that question? If not, no worries. We can move on to the next. Okay. All right. So let me just go ahead and just recap what I've heard so far. So the ability so kindness, obviously, the ability to understand and to really think things through critically, honesty and kindness theme. I love that it carried on for multiple speakers. So, and the thing about kindness, I don't say it's easy to be kind, but you can be kind, you know, when things are going well. It's not as hard unless you're just a mean person. But when things become very stressful, it's tough just to be able to maintain that kindness, that decorum. And so I think that's important. And I'm glad that you guys had that caveat. Treating others with respect. Modesty goes a long way. Being reliable. I'm having a desire to understand and that empathy. So Brad, I'm glad you used that empathy word. And then ability to read the room. And when I talk to students, I talk a bit sometimes about emotional intelligence. And so just really being able to read other people, and then authenticity as well. So great stuff for our first question. So thank you all for sharing that. And so what advice, and this next question may be it's a little different, but just based on your experience, what advice can you offer students to perhaps help them to sharpen their particular skill set, their skill toolkit and preparing to get into the industry and hopefully sustain success. Because as you know, there are multiple skills that are required. So what advice can you offer students to help them to be able to develop their own skills?
I can start. I think this might sound a little silly, but always be a student in the sense that you should always be learning and listening and trying to be better. So once you leave school, that is only the beginning of what you're going to have to learn for your career. And so it's always being willing to, try something new. Don't get stuck in your ways. We'll just get, it will really not allow you to progress in a way that I think you should. So you should always be wanting to learn and grow. And a part of that, I think, is making sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who aren't just like-minded, but are even smarter in many ways. I always say to hire people that are smarter than myself so that I can continue learning. And so don't be jealous of the people around you. Just bring a different skill set. So I think Jessica already mentioned being true to yourself. That is so important. Everybody's coming at this from such a different perspective and background. It's really important that you bring those experiences to work, bring your true self, but also be willing to evolve that true self and really lean into the people that you're evolving with and then the people that you work with.
Great stuff, Kate. Thank you. Anybody else want to chime in that?
I would just add that, there's really no substitute for hard work. Trying to get to where you want to be with shortcuts or trying to go around, like people appreciate hard work still, and always keep that in your mind, and people are always watching. And I think you can have what you have on a piece of paper with a resume and things of that nature, but when people see you working hard and they can trust that that's the person who you are all the time, I think that goes way further than anything you can put on a piece of paper with accomplishments.
Right. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
sorry, I was gonna say, I think one of the biggest technical skills, just to kind of build off of, where you're gonna put that hard work, to Kevin's point, is especially earlier in your career, I cannot overstate the value of being organized as someone young in your career and being the person who keeps everybody around you organized. So being someone who so with the mindset of working hard, but making people around you better, that's something I strive to still do is, how can I position myself to make the people around me better? But especially younger in your career, from a technical skill standpoint, like Smartsheet, Excel, project management, being able to be a person that could be counted on, that like kind of has everybody heads on straight when everybody's heads are in a million different directions, will immediately get you trusted. And I think that relationship building and trustworthiness is something that, that can launch your career just as well as anything else. But that relationship building can really start with like that really technical skill of being like the organizer and someone who can really, bring a lot of different thoughts together and then problem solve when needed within that realm. But I would say that's like the biggest thing I've seen from people earlier in their career that take immediate first steps is that really strong organizational skill.
All right. Thanks, Brad.
And I think mentioning more of technical skills and kind of more some practical advice. I kind of came up through being an editor, and one of the most important things that I've seen in successful editors that now I hire or help out in the industry is to understand what it is you're doing and what your job entails. And then all of these technical tools that you have are just that. They're just different tools. So don't ever find yourself getting married to the tool. So if it's Final Cut Pro or Premiere or Avid, whatever it is, these are all just different tools. And so you can become incredibly adept at one tool, and then 10 years ago, Final Cut went away and completely changed. And so some editors had to scramble to find like the new program that would help them continue to succeed. The ones that were successful were the ones that held any particular tool kind of loosely because they understood what their job was was telling stories. And so any particular tool is not as important as the task at hand, as the overarching job. You always want to be focused on that and then use whatever tool is appropriate.
Great
Just
stuff.
to piggyback off of that, I think to add on to it, being curious is very important, like staying up to date and knowing what's going on in the world and in your industry and specifically within your role, like what's happening in the marketplace. For us, I'm a seller, so I need to know what brands are doing, how they're thinking today. Like what did Marriott just did a US Soccer Federation deal. Okay, what are the other hotel partners, other hotel brands looking to do in the marketplace to kind of marry with this? So just knowing what's going on and being curious will kind of help you want to continue to evolve your skill sets. To get point with Final Cut Pro that went away, but if you're curious, then you know what's coming next and what's the next big thing, such as like the Final Cut Pro, etc.
All right, thank you, Jessica. Any other thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I can chime in here, Rob. I think I would say it's
Great
important
stuff.
to
All right, so go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's important to understand that there is a major difference between soft skills and hard skills or technical skills, like Brad said, and put yourself kind of in a hiring manager's shoes and what they're looking for and when those type of skills will come off, right? A lot of times, if you're interviewing for a position, whether that's a HR person or that's the hiring manager, or that's someone else, the hard skills they want to see those will come off on your resume, right? They want to, and the hard skills, I mean things that were talked about, Final Cut Pro, Photoshop. In my situation as an editor on editorial, AP style, SEO solutions, etc. Soft skills are things such as leadership or problem solving, communication. And those are the type of things that will come off in an interview, I think. So understanding that there's a difference between those. When you're a company that's looking to fill a position, ultimately what you're looking for is a solution to a need. And I think it's important to kind of understand that and what those solutions are and map out how do your skills map out exactly what that company is looking for and how do those two relate. And then you go from there. And those things develop through classes, through internships. Getting internships is so vitally important, I think, to develop some of those skills and really refine some of those skills. And then when you get into the process of building your career and going to your first job, your second job, etc., you begin to kind of realize, what those skills are that you want to continue to build that will help you grow through whatever path you want to take in your career. So just continuing to look for opportunities and understand what the difference is between those hard skills and soft skills and how those skills match ultimately a path that you want to build for yourself.
Good stuff, Sean. A lot of great stuff shared there too. One of the things I honed in on among all the pros wisdom that you dropped were just putting yourself in the hiring manager's shoes. And I think we could just talk just about that, just having that perspective. But yeah, the difference between hard skills and soft skills, I'm glad you shared that. All right, anybody else want to chime in on that question before we move on? Okay, a lot of great stuff. All right, so let me just do a quick recap on that. So always be a student and trying something new. And also, surround yourself with others who aren't necessarily like-minded. Evolve your true self. I'm gonna hold on to the one, evolve your true self. Hard work, so it's an old-fashioned value, but not one that's out of style. Organized, and I really like that Brad added keeping others around you organized, because you're talking a bit about being organized, but also the skill of being able to help others around you to stay organized. Being a person that can be counted on, the importance of relationship building and being trustworthiness. Understanding what you're doing and what it entails, and not being married to the tool. And so it's the task and not necessarily the tool itself. And so the tool is not as important as the task that needs to be accomplished. Being curious, and thank you, Jessica, for sharing that. That's important, just to be able to wonder and to think about things. And then also understanding the difference between hard skills and soft skills, and then really being able to take a hiring manager's perspective. So good stuff, you guys. All right, so I think I'm going to ask one other question, then we're going to open it up for questions from the students. So this is one of my favorite questions. And so we hear a lot of talk about important skills, whether it be hard skills or soft skills. But in my impression, in my opinion, we don't hear as much about the importance of character. So we've touched on some of the character qualities earlier, but I want to ask you all this. Why do you think character matters for success in the sports industry? So why is it such a big deal? You know, because we understand, we hear a lot about why skills are important, but why is character so important for success in the sports industry?
I think for me, I literally work in the business of building relationships, and people don't want to do business with people that they don't like. So having good character, true character, authentic character that's to you, is very important for me. You know, I can't tell you how many times we've seen people go into conversations and the buyer or the person that they're speaking with can read that they're full of shit, for lack of better words. So yeah, I think for us, you know, understanding that the sports industry, generally speaking broadly, is an industry of building relationships, and in that you have to have the character.
Absolutely. And it, at the end of the day, I believe it's what's going to help you sleep at night. If you have you know, integrity and your character is something that you're proud of and that you're comfortable with. And also it goes all the way down to the practical. Very frequently when you're hiring someone or when you're looking for a partner, you might find 3, 4, 5, 10 companies, 10 groups that all offer you essentially the same technical abilities. And so what it's going to come down to is it's going to come down to the relationship that you have or do not have with a particular company. Technology is agnostic. You know, everybody can get their hands on it. Everybody can package it up and offer it to you. And so, you know, the ones and zeros of technology, they don't have any character. It's, you know, it's all the same. And so what it comes down to is that that relationship that you build, and the relationships that you build are going to be based off of the character that you possess and that you present to others. And so it's really going to be the foundation of all of your success is going to be founded on your character.
I think also we talked a little bit about resumes already, but a lot of people can have similar things on paper. So resume versus reality, the reality is your character. People can have the same classes. You have a lot of students that are graduating with you. On paper, you know, a lot of the experience, because they can look fairly similar, but what you bring is your character. And when you join a team, they're not just hiring you for the books you've read and the things you studied in your degree. They're hiring you because you're becoming a part of that culture. And in order to fit into a culture and elevate a culture and be chosen from that pile of resumes, it has to come down to who you are and what you bring as a person as well. So I think it's just so important to be well-rounded. It's not just about, you know, ticking boxes, but really, you know, bringing yourself, I know we said this already, to a team and allowing the team to utilize those parts of you, not just your skill set, not just your brain, not just your experience.
Yeah. And I'll just, you know, Jessica, you know, hit it right on the head, like at the very top. Like, I mean, relationships matter. You know, at least in my experience, I won't speak for the whole panel, but I don't really see as many people getting ahead anymore, the old stereotypical way of like stepping on others and being cutthroat and all that stuff. Like the people who are really succeeding, and especially in sports where, you know, someone said it earlier, like it feels like a tighter community than you think. Are the people who develop like really strong relationships. And whether that's people who want to move internally and move into different parts of the sports industry, because there are so many aspects to it, from the media side to the event side to the front offices. Everything is really built through relationships. You know, I even joke a lot of times in marketing, you know, my whole job is built on relationships because I don't do the quote unquote real work. Like I have to work with creatives to actually produce the ads. I have to work with media companies to actually place the ads. I don't have the ability to like sit here and do it myself. So it's relationships that are really that you build is what's going to lead to your success. And, you know, it is a small community. So the relationships that you build are ultimately going to help you, you know, if you want to work in different parts of the sports industry. Again, it's very interconnected. So those relationships are going to serve you no matter where you want to go. Because, you know, you could work for, say, like an AT&T, but want to get in on the team side. Well, it's the relationships, maybe through a partnership, that might lead to where you want to go. So, I mean, it really all starts and builds on relationships.
Right, great stuff.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and I would just add that integrity is, just like Gabe said, is the key. And I've seen more people, opposite to what Brad was saying, burn themselves by just not having integrity, and look great on paper, and I'll get a call and be like, "What do you think about this person?" And I'll be like, "To be honest, like, this is what happened here," and they're like, "Oh, I can't have that person here on my staff." And so integrity is the key, and building those relationships, and not burning them as well.
Yeah, I would just add from a ESPN standpoint, like pretty much everybody at this company is part of a team in some way, shape, or form. So character is very important because you're working with folks day in and day out, and not just your core team, you're working across the company. So it's sort of the poor sports analogy. The team is only as good as the sum of its parts. And, you basically want to work with the people. You want to project the same way that the people you work with are. And that ultimately leads to success when everybody is liking the people that they work with, and you can work effectively with each other, even if you don't see the same point of view, or come from different backgrounds or experience. That's fine. It's just a matter of working together effectively to get the job done.
Great stuff. Anything else?
Yeah, I can add there, Ron. I think working in sports is definitely unique in the sense of, I would guess that every person that is speaking on this panel would agree with this. This is working in sports is not a typical 9 to 5. You clock in and clock out. There are going to be a lot of times where you're working surrounding events, and a lot of times events happen on weekends. They happen on holidays. They happen on nights. Personally, working in the college spaces, Saturdays are the biggest days of the year for us. And while other people are not working, we are working. So these are unique positions that you're going to be spending time with people on your team in hours that, others aren't typically working. So I think building those relationships are extremely important, and character. When hiring managers are building teams, it's something that's so valuable for them, because you're going to spend time with coworkers, like I said, that typical jobs are not going to do. And you want, a lot of times they're looking for people that, when they're in stressful moments, they want people that are going to be in the trenches with them, that are going to work hard, that are going to be positive, that are going to come through as people that you want to surround yourself with in high stress moments, which are inevitably going to happen in this. And a lot of times, again, I go back to the interview process. This is such a competitive industry where when you're going through resumes, there's going to be so many ties. And when you start to talk to people and get into the interview process, a soft skill like character is going to break a lot of those ties, because hiring managers are going to say, who do I want to be with? Who do I want to surround myself with when it comes to those stressful moments, those weekends, those nights, those holidays that the average person is not working. But you want to be surrounded by people that want to be there, that want to do a good job, that want to shine in those moments, and that are building others around you in those stressful moments. So I think that's vitally important.
Terrific. Thank you, Sean. All right. Anything else before we move on? All right. Well, you folks, once again, have given me some great information. And so relationship building, relationships, was certainly a central theme throughout. Much of it was shared by a panel. But that's what sports is about building relationships. And relationships are a differentiator. And I liked what I heard from Kate, is relationships, resumes versus reality. And so your character, you may look good on paper, but your character is what's going to differentiate you. You've heard about integrity. You obviously heard about the importance of character to your team. And so in sports, since it's not a typical 9 to 5, when you're working lots of hours with people, especially when it gets you get in grind, it's going to be important to be that person who's going to have that integrity, that person who's going to be likable, to be able, so that people will want to work with. So I heard that as well. And Yeah, I think those are essentially the key points. And so thank you all for sharing that information. So at this point, I want to open the floor up for questions from our students and any recent grads that are on the call. And so I saw some questions in the chat. And so I'm going to, and I'm going to ask Trinity and Donica if you saw any good questions in the chat. Well, I don't say good questions, all questions are good, but if you saw any compelling questions in the chat, feel free to bring them to my attention. But I'm going to go ahead and go through just real quick and just to see what we have here. Let's see. So Maria puts here, I've spent 20 years in the military, just retired. Congratulations, Maria, and now starting my college journey to get a sport management degree from Texas A&M. So I worked up the ranks. Your duty titles seem to, I'm sorry, I missed something, seem to be high level. Is that correct? Wasn't sure if there's a chain of command in the sport management realm of job titles. And so I think Maria can say that, keep much chime in. Yes, there definitely is. Much of the military, there are rankings or job titles, and so there is a hierarchy. And I think many cases there may be some organizations where it's a flat organization and where the titles don't really matter as much, and it's not as much of a hierarchy. But yeah, the folks on this panel are folks who have been in the industry for a while, and so they have attained titles that are higher, certainly, than entry level, and in some cases mid-level as well. So hopefully, Maria, that answered your question. Okay, here's a question from, I believe, Luca. How have each of your respective universities prepared you for a career in sports? Does anyone want to chime in and answer that question? How your university prepared you for a career in sports?
I think
You could go ahead, Kate.
No, just because to bring it, Maria had a question before about where we went to school and what our degrees are, and I think those two relate because I don't know about everybody here, but I didn't go to school for sports at all. I had a career before this in music, but similarly in content and storytelling, et cetera. So my degree is actually in ethnic conflict, physical psychology. So totally different, right? And I think many of the students here, I'm sure, already know you want to be in the sports world, and probably people on this call as well. But you don't have to go to school for what you end up doing, which is kind of the idea of always evolving and being a student, but following your passions. And I think everyone here is very passionate about sport and always has been. So my university didn't prepare me for a career in sports specifically, but certainly prepared me to be a hard worker and, always be sort of chasing what I wanted to do and what I believed in. So I would love to kick it to somebody else who went to school maybe for closer to what your career is now. But just to say, even Maria, spending 20 years doing something else, I spent 10 years doing something else, but a lot of transferable skills allowed me to succeed in the role that I have now.
Thank you, Kate, for addressing that. And before I'll be taking some more input on that, I just want to say real quick, panel, if you want to answer questions in the chat, feel free to do so. If you want to just type in your answers to some of those questions that you want to tackle, feel free to do so. But does anybody else want to add to what Kate shared in addressing Maria's question?
Yeah, go ahead, Jessica.
To piggyback off of her, I would argue that I have a little bit of a weirder degree. My degree is in chemistry from Ole Miss. So my university didn't exactly prepare me for a career in sports. But while I was there, I worked for the football program as a work study job. And it just worked out for me. So it's not always what's on paper, but how you show up whenever you get the role.
I mean, I feel like this is becoming a theme, but my degree is in philosophy and theology. So it didn't prepare me, like per se for a job in sports media. But what it prepared me for was that analytical thinking and the ability to look at situations and understand and then communicate effectively with others, with employees and with supervisors. So it's, you can come to it in a variety of different ways.
Yeah, I might win as far as closest. So I have a marketing degree and I did a sports marketing like certificate. It wasn't like a minor, it was like called a certificate. I kind of always wanted, I had an internship as an undergrad with the Miami Dolphins. So I've been kind of in the world for pretty much all of my career. But what I'll say is this, your university is not preparing you for sports. You use your university to prepare you for sports. So what I mean by that is if you have an athletics department, if you have intramural sports, if you're going to college in a city that is hosting a 2-week tennis tournament or has a pro team or other team, use those opportunities while you're a student to learn the industry. So it's kind of marrying, you know, what your educational background is and getting involved in those events or those organizations. Maybe it's even student organizations, but you have to go get it a little bit. So it's not just, oh, I'm going to take sports classes and now I'm going to be in the sports industry. It's really going to be up to you because, as we kind of said, even through some of this panel, it's a competitive space, especially when it comes to resumes and that sort of thing. So you have to kind of look at the opportunities that are open to you and use them. But be open to what's around and what your college might have sitting there waiting.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I 100% agree with
Great
what
stuff.
Brad said there.
Maybe,
Oh, can I keep going, Ron?
oh yeah, yes, please, Sean, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say I agree with what Brad said. I think that one of the most important. I went to Michigan State. I was a journalism major. So I did kind of break the early theme here. I did end up doing what I went to school for, but I think one of the most valuable things that happened when I went to school is as you build up and start to go into 300 level, 400 level classes that are really within your major. A lot of times professors would bring in guest speakers who were in the field that would speak to our class, or people would come in and talk to you about their experiences, very similar to what we're doing right now that Ron has organized here. And that's when you really learn how valuable networking is. For me, just being able to keep in touch with those people. And that is as simple as shooting them an email after they come and speak to your class and saying, I appreciate this. Thank you. Here's what I'm interested in. Here's what I took from your talk. And I'd love to stay in touch with you as I continue to build because those people, whether they help you out or not, just being able to associate a face with a name, those people know people, and that could very well come and help you down the line or down the future when they say, oh yeah, I spoke to a class, this guy kept in touch with me, or this girl kept in touch with me after the class, and I was really impressed with what they had to say. That's when you really start to develop networking and how important that is. That can lead to internships, where you also build networking. So that's what I took from school. I just remember how important it was to start to build a network and really understand and how important it is to keep in touch with people and put a face with a name, so that when that person has a job come up in their field, or that person has a friend in the industry that's looking for something, they can always come back to you and say, yeah, I remember talking to this individual. They were sharp. You should take a look at them.
Good stuff.
And I think something that's been mentioned several times this morning is to help, to be helpful, to be collaborative. The phrase "a rising tide floats all boats" is really true, and that's why people are going to call you again, even if it's something that's not right for you, might be right for a friend, or oh, I don't quite know how to do. Oh, that's not quite my area of expertise, but so and so is able to help. They're going to remember you. They're still going to associate you with solving a problem or overcoming some challenge. So they're going to come back to you. You're going to be top of mind. So again, just that collaborative spirit, that being open, being eager is invaluable.
And Gabe, I just want to jump on that just real quick, because you all have shared so much great information, and I hope the students are taking notes too. But just that point about being collaborative, about being open, I think it's important because we oftentimes, we're out there, we're looking for things from other people, and we don't necessarily think about how we can give and how we can benefit other people. And we're going to talk more about that in our next panel. And so I think it's just showing up, maybe you don't have the greatest skill set. Maybe you don't have a whole lot of experience, but simply just being that person that is likable, that person that is welcoming, that person engaging, that can open a lot of doors from just simply being that person. So thank you for that. That's just want to hold on that. Okay, so let me jump to another question, you guys. And I had this question of mine, and I think I'll stay with it. And maybe a couple people could answer this question. It's more sort of building what you've already talked about. But in the sports industry, relationships are essential and are needed to move through the industry. But how do you go about maintaining these relationships? So I think in some respect, you started to answer this, but anyone have any ideas to share with the students about how to keep a relationship going? Some of the things you've done to, once you start a relationship, keeping it going throughout.
I think for me, checking in on people when you don't really have a reason to. I think a lot of times, in my position, a lot of people will reach out when they need something, and just kind of checking in to say, hey, even if it's a text or an email, just say, hey, hope you have a good holiday, or I know happy birthday. If you see it say birthday on LinkedIn or things of that nature, I think keeps you fresh in their mind, so that when they see your name pop up, it's not like, oh, this person wants something from me, because that can be exhausting. And going back to kind of what we talked about with building relationships and integrity and things of that nature, like, when you have someone that is always just around when they need something or want something from you, then it's just kind of like, I don't really need to be around that person as much as, that much anymore. So that's for me, that's how I've been able to keep and manage, relationships.
I think
Yeah.
that's spot on. I can't tell you how many calls I get from people that need something from me, and the number's not saved because they haven't kept in touch, and I'm not exactly sure who they are. Celebrating people's wins, your friends' wins, your colleagues' wins, your network's wins. It can be something as simple as congratulating them on LinkedIn. Like, they see these messages and these comments, and it goes a long way in the long run.
All right,
And
thank you.
a powerful tool that I've used, because very frequently it doesn't come naturally to me to be outgoing and to be, type A type of personality. But what has helped me is finding the common interest, finding where where you and anyone, kind of collide, or kind of meet. So if it's in this sport, if it's in this team, if it's in this town, if it's in this restaurant, wherever it is, to find something that you have in common with people. And we're all human. We have that in common. So you can find something that you have in common with just about everyone. And that has been a great tool that I've used to remain in contact with the network as I build it.
Terrific.
Yeah.
So folks,
I think
go
what
ahead.
what Gabe said is so spot on. Because there's so many times where you're looking at so many resumes and there's so many ties, and it's agreed with you, finding a common ground or something that you have in common that can help really kind of break through. I think finding people that are in the same network a lot of times can help with build a connection as well. And we have such great tools that we didn't used to have. I think it was Jessica that mentioned LinkedIn. Like that's such a big tool. And you only just remember this, when you're making a intro to someone, you only have one chance to make that intro. And that's your chance to build a connection and figure out a way that what makes sense that this person is going to want to engage with me and talk with me, et cetera. So finding that common ground of something and really doing your homework is so vitally important in that sense.
Terrific. Anything else before we wrap at all?
No, I think there's a lot of questions that we didn't get to. I'll put my email in the chat here. A lot of you have already added me on LinkedIn, but definitely happy to continue the conversation outside of this.
Likewise.
The one thing that I'll just add, because a lot of people are asking similar questions about like getting into the sports industry. One thing I'd like to tell students is just how big the sports industry is. It's not just the teams, governing bodies, media. There are partners that are involved. I mentioned like AT&T earlier, for example, right? Like, I mean, they have a huge sports arm and sports operations area. So like, there's a lot of other companies, agencies, creative agencies. Like, I mean, there's so many different ways that you could be involved in sports or have a link into sports, even if you're not working directly for, like, in your title, a quote unquote sports company. So just think of the sports industry as much more broadly than maybe even actually this panel. because there's a lot of different ways that you can be involved. Like I worked for a marketing agency. I didn't have sports in my title, but we had a lot of sports clients, and that's just another way to keep up.
Agreed. I didn't even realize what I do today was something in the industry until I got to CAA. So yes.
Great stuff. Well, folks, unfortunately, we're at time. I would love to go on. There's so much that's been shared by a panel and a lot of great questions too. So, but I just want to thank all of our panelists. Once again, we know that you're all very busy, but you've proven, and many of you have been supporting our previous projects, that you care about success of the next generation. So I do appreciate you showing up. So let's give another thanks to Brad Epstein, Gabe Haggard, Greg Morris, Jessica Brown, Kate O'Malley Randall, Kevin Moss, and Sean Merriman. Thank you all again for joining and this wonderful information. And if you do want to include your contact information in the chat, you're more welcome to do so. There's absolutely no obligation. And just in case you don't know, the students do have access to your links to your LinkedIn profiles, put it in the conference guide, so they can reach out to you. But if you want to do extra and give them your email address, feel free to do so. But thank you all again, and the students hope you enjoyed it. But this is a great start to our conference today. All right,
Thanks,
take care
everybody.
all.